Hi everyone, welcome to Living La Vita Loca podcast, a retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. My name is Fazz.
And I'm Rich. I don't know why I stumbled over that. I forgot my name. I know why I stumbled, because I nearly said, and I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
And then I realised that you said, my name's Fazz. So me saying, and I'm not.
Yeah.
Doesn't really make any sense. So I was like, correct.
It makes it sound like you're glad that you're not, and that's fair. So, you know.
Your words, not mine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, we were just talking about our weekends before, and you were saying that you had quite a relaxing one. I found out I was terrible at shuffleboard this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So I ended up going to the pub on Saturday night and just absolutely dire at parlour games, it seems. It's like I can't do any.
Nobody's got a parlour anymore.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
Are you going to practice?
I know. Yeah, it's not on me. It's on society, basically. Yeah. There's not enough parlours knocking around anymore.
Bring back the parlours.
Ray Parlour.
No.
Not Ray Parlour. Dire at shuffleboard. But I went to watch the American football. The Chiefs were on Saturday night. So boo, villains of the peace that we are. Everyone needs it. You need a good heel. You need a good heel. Everyone knows that. So, but the Eagles last night. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. I didn't do anything for it. I contributed nothing.
It's all right though. So we might be the only video gaming podcast in Horsforth that has
still has a horse in that race.
Two fans left in the American football NFL race, but here we are. So
it's probably a small pool.
Yeah,
like that. But yeah,
I would love if there was like some other.
Yeah, little did we know on the other side of Horsforth right now.
Sally, did do something really impressive, but also, sorry, my wife, did something really impressive, but also a bit dumb all at the same time that I was, super impressed with, but a bit like it's hilarious. Mm-hmm. She was like, Philadelphia, because we were talking about the NFL, and she was like, is that, and she just started going, Philadelphia Eagles, shine on me. And I was like, what?
Wow.
And I was like, and she went, that's a song, right? And I went,
it is now.
I said, I think it's Philadelphia Freedom, but the fact that you knew it was Philadelphia Eagles and then sang Philadelphia Freedom, I was super impressed, but I was like, it was hilarious also because she was genuinely like, she genuinely thought that was the song. So she's made up her own Ra chant for the Eagles.
That's all right, isn't it?
Yeah,
I haven't. So you
could use that one if you want. We spend a lot of time talking about things that we enjoy together, sports that we enjoy together. Yeah. And it's about time we picked something that, as you alluded to at the end of the last podcast, something that you said that you detest, and I think I probably really don't like it either.
Yeah.
So we might alienate some people here, but
I'm comfortable.
But that's fine. That is it. It's our podcast. Look, we're not here to really upset people necessarily.
If we all agreed all the time, it'd be no fun.
Exactly. So, but going back to that point there, this is something that we agree on that we just don't like.
Yeah. I mean, I get why people would like it.
Yeah.
It's just that most of the reasons that I've ever been given are not ones that I like.
No.
So,
and that thing is Formula One. The villain, the heel of the sports world. So I thought I'd have a little bit of look at sort of, Formula One as a sport nowadays. I'm going to try. So this podcast, whilst we're going to talk a little bit about Formula One, we thought we'd offset that with some fun games that they say fun video games, that is in, video games that we'd be more interested in as part of our hashtag Drive January, episode 3. And you're going to be reviewing Wreckfest.
Yes. Height of culture.
Yeah, which I'm super more excited about.
As well you should be, frankly. As well you should be.
But we'll leave that to the end, I think, because then that'll sort of bring us out of anything that we feel any angry feelings towards.
Wash the taste out.
Exactly. But I was looking at Formula One, and it is, according to one of the studies, the studies that everyone says when you just Google how popular is Formula One, and the
science
science says that it's the most popular and fastest growing sport in the world currently, apparently, as of last month. So, with people viewing 750 million people, I don't know.
Can they all be wrong?
Yes,
I think mostly.
Well, if you think that there is, nearly 8 billion people on the planet, is that correct? Or is it 7? Anyway, around that, amount, probably, and therefore it's likely that there's about 1 billion people that are just wrong.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
that is flawless logic.
I don't feel that bad about it now.
75% of people believe you can prove anything with statistics, even if they're made up. It's fine.
It must be quite popular though, because I bump into people all the time who say, in the office at work, like, as in, I overhear regular conversations about Formula One. And one of my closest colleagues is a massive Formula One nut. And he will try to describe to me the ins and outs of it, not like pushing it upon me, but if I sort of like say he's sort of talking about it and I've seen the news headline, like whoever won like the big race, whoever won the big race at the weekend, he will try and inform me, but within milliseconds I am bored fucking senseless. Like, there is nothing about the sport, inverted commas, that I find in any way attractive whatsoever. So I don't know about you, what it is that turns you off.
So jokes aside, like, I do see why people would like it, because quite often the way that people have described it to me who really, really like it, and the way they've tried to describe what they like about it, I think they take from it a lot of what we get from American football.
Okay.
And that kind of like the nuance, the minutiae, do you pit here? Do you take that line there? All that kind of stuff. There are plenty of people that seem to also like the kind of glitz and glamour around it, which just I have no interest in any of that anyway. But I mean, for me, it's at least things like, say, drag racing, right? You can see the entire thing from where you're sat.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You can see the entire thing. It's big, it's loud, it's noisy. Great. No notes. 10 out of 10.
No notes.
No notes. We've peaked.
There we go.
With motorsport, we have peaked. But with Formula One, like, it just never grabbed me. Like, I don't know if it's because, like, I don't know, maybe I had a toy when I was a kid or something like that. Like, they just always look like toy cars rather than real cars to me, which I know is ridiculous, but there it is. But what gets me is the noise. I just hate that incessant, high-pitched whining. I hate it. To me, it sounds like you've got a fleet of mopeds trying to race, which would be more entertaining, frankly. But, like, if I'm playing a racing game, I always end up on like muscle cars or something like that with a bassy rumble and all that. Like it's more engaging to me than that fucking high pitched whine.
I think there's something to that where it's just like the type of person that you are. Like, maybe just like, it might just be a certain pitch of noise that you prefer in your engines.
For me, it's almost like that kind of dog whistle kind of thing where it's just like, and you're just like, I find it so distracting, and I can't switch off from it. And I mean, like, there were plenty of times back in the day when you'd get races on like terrestrial telly and all that kind of stuff, and I'd dip in and out, but like they would take so long, and you just sit there like 70 laps of something. Like, I don't care. And then like fast forward to what you would have fast forwarded it then. From now you're rewinding back to like 2013, and I did a half marathon once upon a time.
Nice. Well,
round Silverstone.
Were you going?
No, because tell you what, running round a racetrack is so dull. It is so boring. At least if you're in a city centre or something like that, you can see some stuff.
Yeah,
you're going past things. On a racetrack, there is fuck all to look at. Oh my days! Like, it's just,
what was that in aid of? Like, is it
just to know that I could do it?
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Like, I could have raised money for charity, but I didn't, and I'm okay with that. I just wanted to know that I could do it for myself.
I raised money for smoking companies.
I raised self-esteem for me, and I'll tell you what, I've still got the t-shirt and it still fucking fits. Thank you very much.
No, nice. So, yeah, cool. That's just like, that is. I've never really thought about it. Like, going for a run, like, you want to see stuff while you're going through the miles, don't you? You don't want to just see just asphalt
nothing.
and
like tarmac. The thing with racetracks is because they're noisy, you put them in the middle of nowhere, and there's just nothing there.
So let's have a little consideration about video games then. I thought it'd be a nice idea to have a look at the Formula One series, kind of like almost retro. Well, it is retro gaming for me. Probably the one that I've played the most of, which would be the one that was at first published by Psygnosis, and then developed by them as Studio Liverpool. So I had a playthrough the Formula One PlayStation 3 Championship Edition from 2006, and then I also thought, right, I'm going to hop back 10 years as well from that and look at the start of that series, which was developed by Bizarre Creations, I think it is, but also it was published by Psygnosis.
Right.
So effectively their lifespan, like 10 years apart, and see what the differences were.
How do we progress?
Yeah, well, yeah, really.
Okay.
And it was on because they were probably, I mean, certainly 96, I owned on the PlayStation 1 and played when I was younger. I don't really remember playing it that much, though. And it was almost one of those things where I think it was probably one of the first PlayStation games I had. And then I sort of dabbled a little bit with 06. It was, like I say, it wasn't even called 2006. It was Psygnosis' Studio Liverpool, their only PlayStation 3 game of this series, and then they handed it off to Codemasters, unsurprisingly.
Oh, yeah.
Who just do all the driving games. So yeah, but I just thought it'd be interesting to see what that looked like. And I know that at the time, I remember it being spoke about specifically, say that this was the height of Formula One simulation. That is, and you just couldn't get any more like Formula One, and yet here we are putting one out every year. Like,
funny that.
Yeah. So I was just interested to see, because I can't really remember too much about it, so I thought I'll go back and have a little look about it. Like an interesting experiment for me. One of the things I did think about when I was playing it was how much would Studio Liverpool / Psygnosis enjoy developing the two things they only really kind of developed over that time span were Wipeout and Formula One games.
Yeah.
Like, and what
Got
they
a
did.
type.
Yeah, exactly. But also, like, which one of those, I wonder, they enjoyed developing the most? I mean, they might not have even thought about it, but, as a video game developer, it kind of feels like you've, certainly when I speak about the review of this, the 06 version, a type almost, like, in terms of it being like a clean-cut simulation, whereas Wipeout certainly has that sort of futuristic, everything has an edge vibe, but as everyone well knows, that's listened to episode 6 of our podcast, are very tinny.
Got that far back.
Yeah, yeah. Our terrible, like, is in the worst sounding, us ironically saying about bad noise, like the worst sounding podcast. Well, we have to go back to Wipeout, clearly. But we know that we talked about how influential the soundtrack is on that, for example. And I'll touch on that a little bit. But yeah, so it just... I just thought it'd be interesting to sort of think from that point of view, from a game developer. Would you have a preference over this clean-cut sort of simulation of Formula One real life, or something you can kind of put your own spin on and put your own personality into a bit more during that time? So I don't have an answer. I just thought I'd say that's what I was thinking about.
That's fair.
Yeah. So... how does the 2006... I'm working back to 1996. I'm going to start with the 2006 here, and there is a reason for that. How does it stack up? They were right when I read the reviews about it. It looks great. It looks just like a Formula One racing weekend, effectively. It looks brilliant. It sounds just like real life, terribly. Yeah. but it does sound like... It sounds like a Formula One game. Like... It just, it was just so simulation focused when I kind of got into it. It was like, rather than being fun focused, it was all about how much can we make this just like a Formula One like race / weekend, and not just like how do we make this like a Formula One race. Like, it took me about an hour before I even kind of got into an actual Formula One race when I started a championship, because you've got all the pageantry around Formula One. And again, I'm being as objective as possible here. Like, rather than me saying, I don't like it as a sport, thinking about it though, you've kind of got your practices, and then you've got your qualifying.
It's like a weekend.
You've got to do the whole thing. Yeah. And there was no sort of like way to kind of shortcut that. If you wanted to do it, like if you wanted to be on the grid in a good position, you have to do that. If you go skip or simulate qualifying or practice and things like that, then you end up with your car at the back of the grid pretty much, and it's almost like, what am I doing this for? Like, I don't really have a chance to win now. Like, and then I was thinking about it, and it was a point you made before. How much fun can you have with a video game if you genuinely, and I tried this, that is in for a little while, if you go, I'm going to do an actual Grand Prix. Now, clearly the game isn't probably designed to do that, but at the same time, if you want to be a Formula 1 race car driver, then the ability to go 70, 80 laps or whatever it is, like it's there. You know what I mean? And you can do it. I got about the longest I played any race over the sort of few hours that I played this game was probably, I think I got 15 laps into a race, and I was just like, man, I'm just so sad. I'm just so sad. Like, it's a really well made game, but I felt so bored and alone. It was just like, it's just so weird. And one of the things that I noticed about this, and I also noticed about the 1996 one, but more so with this, is the amount of assists that are on as almost an automatic setting as soon as you start the game. So, like, if you kind of just hold the accelerator and touch here and there to get round corners in terms of, you know, left and right with the analog sticks and things, it kind of drives a bit for you. Like, as in, if you start off with the bog standard setting, if you will. Yeah. And the idea seemed to be that you had to take the assists off. So you're almost like, not like car tuning per se, but almost like, you know, cornering assists or like how fast you go into corners and stuff. And there was automatically a driving line on there as well that you would follow, and it'd show you like it was coloured. Oh, yeah. So it'd be like, oh, you know, you decelerate here red, and then you accelerate green and things. And obviously that's really useful. It's great that it's so accessible, but at the same time, I didn't really know where my skill level sat. Yeah, because it just started off so. I guess babyfied, like almost
hand-holdy.
Yeah, exactly.
That almost sounds like the opposite of Dirt Rally.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it probably is the exact opposite of Dirt Rally. Yeah, you know, but maybe like, and that's probably why I really liked, you know, EAWRC was almost that it felt like the right amount of right amount of hand-holding, just holding the tip of my finger, just making sure it was still there.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because like, if it's going to be all simulation based, I get that you don't want to alienate people straight out of the gates, but at the same time, you want to illustrate that you have those options there.
Yeah, and it was just a weird hodgepodge of that sort of accessibility. Like, so it feels like this game is designed probably, if I'm going to be honest, for Formula 1 enthusiasts who probably don't want those options on straight away.
Man, I bet this is something that already exists, but on the infinitesimally small chance that there's a developer listening, what about some kind of like tutorial type circuit that you race when you fire the game up the first time, where you go through the different assist options corner by corner, and then you can turn them on or off?
Well, that sounds wonderful. That sounds like that would be a really good idea. It'd probably be better than the idea that they had on the 2006 version, where your tutorial is a text-based manual in the game. And can you imagine, like, somebody who is thinking, I'm going to try and give this game as much of a go as I possibly can, and I'm forced to. I have to read about Formula 1, with my PlayStation 3 sort of analog stick scrolling through it. It was almost like reading the terms and conditions at the start of every game that nobody ever reads. Like, I was like, I have to read the terms and conditions to know what to turn off to make it so that the car isn't kind of driving me.
Yeah. Just do it like the opticians, where you're coming up to a corner. We're going to turn on the ABS now. Is it better with, without, or just the same? Next corner, we're going to turn the racing line on now. Is it better with, without, or just the same? Like, just do it like that.
Yeah, that is nice. Yes, somebody out there, take Rich's idea and make money out of it.
Yeah, go, fly. I believe in you.
Speaking of the opticians, like, you're right. But speaking of opticians, like, as in, you're right. Like, so that kind of sort of sparks something in my head where there's two parts of the opticians, where you read the text on the wall, and that's kind of boring. Yep. And there's the bit where you look at the balloon through the scope, and it's like, can you see the balloon? And they squirt like a little puff of like water in your eye or something. Like, that's the fun bit. Like, that's the fun part of the opticians. So yeah, you're right. Much more hands-on. Much more, you know. Is it there or is it here? And it really could have done with something like that. It just it needed some personality put into it, but I don't know how much they would be allowed to put into it. It's a licensed sport.
True.
And it's almost, so therefore it's like, and this is kind of like why I was speaking about Wipeout before, it's almost like, I feel like that is maybe where you see game developers being able to sort of say, here's our Formula 1 game, it drives as fast as a Formula 1 car, but you can, it's anti-gravity, and it's just like...
we remembered the fun this time.
Yeah, exactly, put the boosts on and put some cracking music into it. I just found it so... and it's difficult because... Like I say, I really was trying to be like, is it the sport or is it the game that is dull? And I don't think either was served well in this circumstance. And it just felt, it wasn't horrendous, like, as in, it did look really good. And I felt like a Formula 1 driver. And for 2006 on the PlayStation 3, it looked really good. Like, I could totally see how, if you really wanted to, get your steering wheel gear out and things like that, and you were, wanting to perfect yourself as a Formula 1 driver, I think that if you were able to spend enough time with it to work out what the assists are that you want to turn off, the one thing that happened to me a couple of times was that, I say a couple of times, like 2 laps in a row, like as in, so I was steering round a right-hand corner, and the car beside me, I was trying to sort of manoeuvre basically away from the corner, like as in I wasn't trying to hit him or anything, but it was almost like the AI was like forcing me into the corner, and it forced me into the pits twice, and I was just like, you motherfucker. I was like, so you can imagine that I was already kind of not really enjoying this experience anyway, and I'm like, this entire race is ruined now because the AI just wasn't like... It's meant to have this sort of... This version was meant to have this AI that kind of recognised what was going on. I don't think it was intentionally, like, trying to force me into the pits. I think it just happened. And I was like, it just didn't feel like a clever game around all the assists and things. It was almost like... I think it was trying to market itself as that. And actually, it would have been better if it was just a pure driving experience, like Dirt Rally, for example, where you just learn from being, like, absolutely mullered down, down a ravine somewhere. But you learn not to do that next time. So yeah, it was a bit too handheldy for me. I mean, in general, I'd say it was just a passable simulation, but it was kind of like lacking fun and love. So that was like a 5 out of 10 experience for me.
Cool. I'm going to put it on the spreadsheet now.
Yeah.
This is an embarrassing question.
Okay.
We've said F1 so many times, I've genuinely forgotten what this game is called.
So it's Formula 1 Championship Edition.
Formula 1 Championship Edition.
And I think it was the only time that it kind of got that moniker during the series lifespan. Right. The rest of them were all sort of numbered. Now, the very first one, Formula 1, from the 1996 season, so it was from 1996, it was based on the 1995 season. That's just called Formula 1. So, right. And that was, so I played this on the PlayStation 1, and I wanted to just get that little bit of feel to see actually how much of a simulation in 2006 was. What was 1996 like? That is in, could they do that? And
everything's on stilts.
Yeah. And I was pleasantly surprised by this game for 2 reasons. The first one, it had way more personality and more fun in it than you could imagine. Considering, like I say, Psygnosis / Studio Liverpool, as they later became, they developed the later games, but they just published the earlier games, and it was a company called Bizarre Creations that actually made this game. And you can tell it's had a different hand on the tiller because of the fact that in the menu straight away, you've got incredible, like, amazing rock music. Like, as in, so, like, Steve Vai and Joe Satriani. It's just like, I looked at it and I was like, I couldn't believe that. I was like, oh, there's got a licensed soundtrack and it's really, really good. Like, it was just... And
wasn't it Bizarre that did like Project Gotham or something like that later on? Yes, it was.
Well done, yeah. Okay, So you could just see that it just had a little bit more about it. And I was like, all right, okay, fair enough. Like Formula 1 maybe had a bit more kick-ass in it, like, early on. But the second thing that actually impressed me was how little it had changed up to 2006. So how much 1996 still had in it from a customization point of view. You kind of had, you could change your type of tyres, you could control your fuel, you can control the downforce, like the weather, even though it's not got this active weather, for example, that 2006 had, that all your HD, consoles sort of would be like, oh, look how cool this is now, get this year's version. it still has the ability in this to be able to say, well, actually, you can have like wet track, dry track, and whilst you can't see it graphically, it doesn't shine like that. You obviously, from a point of view of driving the car's handled differently, which is an impressive feat in 1996 on the PlayStation 1.
It's the main thing, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't actually really matter necessarily if it's like overcast in the background in Silverstone or whatever.
Just had a funectomy on the way.
So yeah, I was like, this is where I was a bit like, I think Formula One probably deserves a little bit of credit in so much that the consistency of it, of how it is this certain pure thing where you are driving these fast race cars around the same tracks every single year, pretty much. That is obviously it's like, I think it's like 18 tracks in a championship season, but they're different now, like probably more so than they used to be, and they all have to, I think I saw the news the other day that, like, you know, the Belgian Grand Prix has to miss a year, and it's money. But that is it's just interesting to see that there's actually this consistency over a 10-year period there. And I'm sure there probably is now, where it's like, you know that you're playing a Formula One game and it's all doing the exact same things. It doesn't matter which console generation it was on. And I was like, oh, okay, that's really interesting. Again, the assists were a bit over-friendly. It was almost felt like, until you took them off, it was trying to drag you around the track a bit, like almost that is in. So it just felt like there was almost a hand pulling my car a little bit, and I was a bit like, "Oh, that's odd." Like, you know, let me learn to crash at 180 miles an hour. Like, I'll soon learn, but you're not letting me. Like, I'll have to go turn it off in the menu and stuff. And yeah, it just, you know, it still had a little bit of that about it. So I don't know if that's just a Formula One sort of thing where it's like, no, you're not clever enough to drive this car. But yeah, I've already kind of mentioned the graphics a little bit about the weather and things. That they are very rough. The screen tear and the draw distance is really poor. But so. I guess that's another thing that was a positive thing for 2006, that's where you can definitely see that progressive evolution of a Formula One video game, is that, you know, it looks incredible like in 2006, and I assume so now even more so. 1996, you definitely get that PS1 polygon situation. I mean, don't get me wrong, it'll be a step on from Virtua Racer, for example. But like, bless it. Yeah, bless it. And another thing that kind of made this a little bit more fun for me was, you know, and this isn't the 2006 faults, but nostalgia. Like, I remember more of the sort of the commentary of Murray Walker, for example. Those little
yellow squares with the black numbers in.
Exactly. Yeah. The infographics on the actual television, and you probably see it more often because it'd be on Grandstand and stuff like that. You were probably, I guess, it washed over you more because it was probably on the 4 channels that you had on your television back then.
Like, you couldn't avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas now you can avoid it entirely because you don't have to subscribe to it.
Yeah.
Like you said, the Murray Walker thing, it was really good because he was on the commentary.
Oh, nice.
And I love sports games from sort of the mid-90s where a commentator would just ask to do like 3 lines. We've talked about Peter Brackley, I think, probably in Pro Evolution Soccer before, and it was great seeing like sort of Murray Walker, like, because I played as Damon Hill.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's sort of the commentary be like, Damon Hill! And they'd be like, he's gone into the pits. Just the most inane things. So it's like, Damon Hill! He's going a bit round that corner now. It was wonderful. So I really enjoyed that, even though it was just, I guess, the game wasn't intending that to be fun, but it was.
Yeah, but it's a bit of personality, like you say, isn't it?
Yeah. And the last thing I kind of really appreciated about this was that there were a couple of different modes. There was an arcade mode with a time extension on it, which obviously for a Formula One game that you don't see that anymore because that's where
somehow beneath us.
Exactly, that's Sega Rally / Daytona sort of, like, you know, level. But actually, I was like, oh, you know, this gives me something different to do.
It's a nice touch.
Whilst, you know, I'm thinking about a time extension, I'm thinking about a different mechanic whilst I'm just going around these general sort of, I guess, basic tracks, if you will. And the other one was that there was a ladder mode on this where basically you end up driving against a rival and you had to beat that rival. So you were still doing a Grand Prix and you were still doing it in the championship mode, for example, but you had to beat a rival. So if you started 24th on the grid, it'd be like, oh no, 23rd on the grid. That is in it. It was great, you know. So again, I couldn't find that. I didn't see that in the 2006 version either. So again, it had that about it. But yeah, it kind of just had a bit more points of difference and a bit more fun about it. You know, and probably the best thing I could say about it was that the AI, for example, whilst I didn't appreciate the AI being a bit sort of weird in 2006, in 1996, the AI actively fucking hate you. Like, is it like a 3-lap Grand Prix? There were no spoilers left on the backs of cars after a 3-lap Grand Prix. Everyone's an absolute killer. Like, and then the aerodynamics are screwed, and you're just all over the parish. That is it. And I was like, I quite like that this is a bit more chaotic.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I like my racing games, as we'll go on to Wreckfest. But yeah, this just had a bit more about it, better music, more personality, a couple of different modes. Yeah, it looks like shit, but I didn't mind because I could still tell that I was driving a racing car, and you know, and if I didn't know, Murray Walker was shouting about it. So, you know, yeah, this was more of a 6 out of 10 territory. You know, like it was still Formula One, but I would, if anybody said to me which version would you go back and play, absolutely guaranteed I'd say go and try the 1996 version first, because I think you probably find a little bit more fun in that than you would do in the 2006 version. So there we go. That's as far as I feel like I can go into the Formula One world and give it its dues. I'll
tell you what though, like it's kind of nice to hear that you have what is basically a simulation game but with an arcade mode. Like,
yeah.
I feel like that's something that we've lost a little bit with our sports games over the years.
Yes.
Like a little bit of variety, or you know, like in what was it, FIFA 98, where you could play on the indoor pitch or something like that.
Yeah,
like just that little twist on it.
I think they put it back in, didn't they? But I don't know.
They did. It's a kind of over the last few years, there has been a bit more of an attempt to inject some more of that stuff.
Yeah,
in places.
Well,
but for a long time there, we're missing it.
Well, it's like I mean, I don't. I'm going to be honest, because I haven't spotted it certainly since I've played a modern Madden. But to have like NFL Street baked into modern Madden, for example, would that not just sell more copies of a game? Like, as in, you know?
There was the last one I played would have been one of the first ones that had the story mode in, and there was like or it might have been the second year they did it or something like that. But they had like a little section of that where it was basically 5-on-5.
Yeah,
and it was effectively flag. You're just playing on a beach, and even that on its own, like that,
yeah, no, that's cool.
That's a great shout. Like just that little extra bit. If I could have just accessed that from a menu rather than having to traipse through the story,
yeah,
great. Like,
okay,
yeah, more of that kind of thing would be awesome.
Okay,
yeah,
suck it to me, baby. Wreckfest me.
So I played this on the PS4. So not exactly retro.
I put PC in our
potato.
Yeah,
all
no.
peas, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it was made by Bugbear, who did some of the Flat Out games back in the day. Now, Flat Out were basically a somehow even arcadier version of Destruction Derby, and you could go and smash up some cars, sure, but you also had these little mini games where you could like fling your driver over like high jumps, or like see how far you could fire them and stuff like that. And it was all ridiculous, frankly. So Wreckfest, if anything, by comparison, feels like it's trying to be more of a simulation. But the more you get to grips with it and the more you spend time with it, the more you realise that it is actually just... It's lunacy. It's in the best possible way. It really is. So obviously, like, being geared around like banger racing and demolition derbies and stuff like that, like the damage model counts, right? And holy hell, is this one good? Like, this one is so satisfying. Like I would routinely have the hardcore damage on just to see what would happen and how my car would react. And like, I know I mentioned it when we were talking about the Dirt Rally games and stuff like that previously. But once upon a time, I had the force feedback wheel, and it was really good fun trying to like manage the car through all that. And I mean, you've got plenty of options. You can make it as realistic or not as you like, but it's utter carnage.
Yeah,
like you can have so many cars not even cars, so many vehicles in a given event. Bits flying everywhere and all that kind of, like, the frame rate can absolutely tank on a base PS4 like I played on. Don't get me wrong, and like you can get the odd like graphical inconsistency with like weirdly floating bits of debris and stuff like that. But for the most part, like it's so sound, and you can suspend your disbelief enough.
Well, that's it. You're willing to forgive it if you're having a great time. That's all that matters. Is that
exactly. And like to go back to what you were saying about Formula One, like for me, the big deal with it is the variety. Like, you have some tracks in there that are like utter batshit lunacy stuff. Like, there's a loop-the-loop on one of them and stuff like that. The game doesn't care if you go into it with a vehicle that is powerful enough to go around that loop-the-loop. It will let you do it anyway. There is a route around it that you can always take, but it is not going to stop you from trying if you want to. It's perfectly happy for you to do. Just gives you the toys, and it's like, you know what? We both know this is going to end poorly, but if you want to give it a go, you crack on. And like you can have, you can do demolition derbies on lawnmowers. You can have like basically a go-kart that's like a little outhouse complete with like toilet roll holder and stuff like that, going up against a fleet of school buses. You could be big rig trucks without the trailers. You could be muscle cars. You could be, there's so many different ways you can just go in and go, what do I feel like breaking today?
Yeah.
And like motorhomes. There you go. I did the loop track with like 20 odd motorhomes, and like it just ended so badly for everybody. But oh my god, was it fun? And it's just like.
My mum and dad have got a motorhome. I feel like, sort of trying to...
Well, now I know what damage you can do to them. So.
Destruction Derby situation.
Yeah, and like the tracks are great. Like they're just crazy enough to give you enough like lumps and bumps and to make it so your car is never exactly comfortable. But if you want to just do like an oval with banked sides, the option's there. Yeah. Like you have the option. The really cool stuff for me is the fact that like wrecks are persistent. Okay. So say if you're in a banger race or something like that, the longer you are racing, the more you are going to have to dodge corpses, basically. and that big, like, so that the entire track, like, even if you are on that oval, say, like, the track will itself change because okay, once I'm around that corner, I'm going to have basically a chicane to get past all of these, like, piles of flaming cars. It is really, really cool. The slight downside with that is that depending on how you've got the AI and the damage model and all that kind of stuff set up, you can get to the stage, as I frequently seemed to, I basically would have, like, crazy hardcore damage, but like dumb as a pile of bricks AI, because that's how I roll. But it does mean that sometimes you would have like a 12 lap race, right? And it was not uncommon for me to be the only car left after about 6 laps. And a couple of times my wife would look over and be like, are you going to finish this race? Like, I am finishing this race, as I'm trying to like limp this 3-wheeled, used to be 4-wheeled, like mangled mess of a jalopy.
There's some challenge in that. There's some thrill.
There really is, especially when you know that like you've got maybe like 5 hit points left and it will track this stuff on screen. So you know that like screwing up once will be the end of the race.
Oh,
and like, if you are the last person out, you might still get some points depending on what you're doing. But ultimately, like, that kind of matters, And so if you're a bit of a glutton for punishment, suddenly the strategy flips from survival to a different kind of survival. But like, you're having to like be really, really careful in negotiating these very hazardous tracks. And I mean, if you were in the crowd, I imagine it would be some of the most boring stuff you've ever watched. Seeing this like tiny little car pooling around at about 15 mile an hour, missing several wheels.
Oh, I'd love that
dragging
so
round.
Much. Just like people like throwing shit and stuff. Just like,
get on with it, for God's sake.
Try and knock the engine off or something.
Yeah, exactly. And like, but at the same time, when you do it, it is kind of satisfying. And I don't know what that says about me. No, but like, there is something to that. I
totally get that.
And don't get me wrong, like, you can always tailor it so that you are having quicker races, beefier cars, people are actually getting to the end and all that kind of stuff. Like, and this is what impresses me most about it. Like, it gives you those options. If you want to do it that way, you can. You absolutely don't have to.
Yeah.
You'll go through the career mode and it will throw, standard races at you, but it will also throw the occasional, like, challenge at you. So, like, I don't know, you might have 20-odd school buses and you are in a comically small, I can't remember what it was, like, I don't know, like, one of the vehicles you can have is basically a sofa. Or literally a sit-on lawnmower and all that kind of stuff, and you just have to survive. Or you have to outrun a rival, like you were saying earlier on about Formula 1 and stuff like that.
Yeah, so, but not as fun.
Well, this is the thing. Like, there's all sorts of little bits and bobs like that, and the way the career mode's set up is that if you do bump your head against one of those things, you can always go back and either do a previous one a bit better, or you might have a different option for something else you can do.
So, I had a little dabble for about an hour this week, just to kind of get it. Because, to be honest, just because I do want to play this at one point.
I think you should.
Yeah, and I knew fine well. I've known for a while, like, sort of. I know it's like sort of 7 years old something now, but I've known for a while that I wanted to, and sat there on Game Pass and just doing the podcast and and playing other things. You don't get round to everything, but I was like, oh no, I'll just have a little look at it this week, and. Like you say, I was shocked at seeing all the tuning options that were in there. It seemed like such a professional.
It's weirdly in depth.
Yeah.
Like for what has a kind of fun, playful exterior. It's weirdly in depth, and funnily enough, I've just spotted the note to myself. I was just going to come to that. Like, the upgrades, quite often you'll go into a racing game and the upgrades will be, bolt the next best thing on.
Yeah, okay.
And that is your progression. Whereas in this, it's got a class system. So if you have a car that is class B, you can add better engines, better wheels, better armour, all that kind of stuff to bump it up to an A class. But also, you can take stuff out and bring it down to a C.
Okay.
And so you can start to use it across multiple things.
Yeah.
And it sounds so stupid, but I genuinely can't think of another racing game where downgrading your car is a sensible option sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I know how it handles. I know I like it. I get on with it. Can I not use it in that other class? Oh wait, I can. I just need to take that engine out and put another one in.
Yeah.
So having that as an option is really, really cool. And like, don't get me wrong, it doesn't work across the board. There will be certain ones that you just can't, bring up to a certain class or down the other way. But nonetheless, like, you at least have an option to try. And more often than not, it seems to work.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, beyond that, the only other real note I've got is that the soundtrack is very meh. Like, it's very forgettable.
Yeah, I did note that.
But apart from that,
I saw, like, back to that. This kind of relates to each other really, but it's almost like the is sort of the way that you progress during the game.
Yeah,
felt very MotorStormy. Like, it felt like you were getting a ticket to sort of different things.
Yeah.
But I also noted within the first hour, like, so I started on, like, obviously in the lowest championship, and I think I did like 4 or 5 events. And I think in the 5th event, I was like, actually, I'm really, for being the lowest championship, I was really struggling. Like, and then at one point, I was like first in a race, and then cars came from nowhere, almost over the side of the fucking track. Like, I was like, where have you come from?
So like, there are plenty of tracks that are, because they're like demolition derby designs, they are designed to literally throw cars at you, and like, they will double back on themselves.
Just did not see that coming.
All the kind of stuff that your brain would say is not logical race design, it totally takes that and runs with it. Because you'll have, the classic one is the kind of figure of 8 where you're crossing in the middle, but then you have ones that will add in jumps, or you have one that's kind of like a bone shaped where you have this straight in the middle, but you can have cars going both ways at the same time on it. And stuff like that, where it will quite happily give you situations in which you are going to probably hit something or come pretty flipping close to it. Yeah. And it just adds so much to the insanity and the fun.
Is the I believe there's a second one. Is it out on is it on PC early access now? I don't know.
I don't actually know.
Yeah, I'm sure I saw it kick around the internet. The second one's kind of out and about, but because because it was a Kickstarter, wasn't it? It was like, even though it was bugbear, I think
quite possibly. I
sure,
wouldn't be surprised. It feels like that kind of spiritual successor, kind of territory. Yeah,
it's weird because it definitely feels like one of those games that certainly. I don't know how you describe it. You know, when you just think it just looks like it's been kind of put together, like is in a way that you think that lots of people have funded it and maybe even had a say in
how it plays. Yeah, like I think because I was trying to work out how I would sum it up, because I know we've spoken about Dirt Rally and its kind of simulation leanings and how it's going to want to, basically hurt you. And, we talked about Formula One and how it's possibly a bit handholdy. I think for me, Wreckfest essentially boils down to something that feels like a simulation that hasn't forgotten it's a video game.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds daft.
No.
But there is enough stuff in there that it's like, we know you are here to have fun.
Yeah.
If you wanted to actually go and crash a car, there's not much stopping you. So well done for not doing that in real life. We know you're here to have fun and see what it looks like when you break things. Let's go break some things, friend. And it just feels like that. It wants you to come in. It wants you to have fun. It wants you to stay a while. I got to applaud it for that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Did you have you played any online on it or anything at all? I imagine that's quite fun.
Yeah, I have not actually, because again, like where I was on my PlayStation, I don't have the PlayStation Plus thing. So no, I haven't. But I do imagine that it could be quite chaotic. I guess my only slight reservation would be if you did end up in that situation where it was just you versus the carcasses of your vanquished foes. I don't really know how that would work. The kind of sensible thing for me would be that they just give you an early checkered flag kind of thing and say, well, you're the last one standing, well done, you've won. So they don't do anything like that when you're in single player. Whether or not they would if you were in multiplayer to stop a load of people quitting out, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. And score then?
Score-wise, I'll give it an 8.
Okay.
I think if I played it and I was more drunk, it could be a 9 quite easily. But it's an 8 all day.
Yeah, I imagine, like you say, that's a really good way of putting it. I think if a game that is loads of fun, and then you could be like, I'd probably tag one more on if I had
if I was,
3 beers.
If I was in the right mood, or like you say about multiplayer, and I can imagine that you get enough consoles and screens in the same place at the same time. I can imagine you would have an absolute blast with it.
Oh, cool. I haven't mentioned this yet, but you went to an actual Royal Rumble the other week.
I did,
And that just reminded me of that. Like almost Wreckfest, like when you were speaking about it, I felt like it was almost the carnage in the wrestling ring.
Yeah, now you mention it.
People from nowhere.
Being the last person standing.
Yeah, exactly.
There are some overlaps there. Wow, that's a revelation, isn't it? God, I really am consistent, aren't I?
You just love that last man standing, absolutely battered and bruised, weapons from nowhere situation. Like you're going to be in Mad Max, aren't you? When it's all said and done, and Trump, who's back in today, like as in the inaugurations happened, and then we're going to have you as Mad Max somewhere, Mad Rich,
Mad Rich, Miffed Rich,
Raging Rich. That's what. Yeah, cool. Right. Well, I did say that I thought that'd sort of maybe pick the spirit up a little bit at the end in terms of how we feel about it. So, if you're a Formula One enthusiast, we are sorry in terms of pissing you off maybe, but at the same time we like what we like. And you may as well be consistent about it.
We're not going to hold it against you. It's fine. We still love you.
Cool. Right. One more week of Drive January. So yeah,
cool.
I love that. It means absolutely nothing to anybody, and yet I just I had to announce it.
No, that's good. It's nice to have a thing, isn't it?
You guys just sit and think about that all week. About there's only one more Drive January until
talking about something else
until we drew Drive February. I'm not going to subvert it and be like the first thing I played in February, but like another driving game. I'm kind of getting a bit sort of worn out of being propelled forward in a vehicle.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We'll speak to you next week, guys.
Catch you later.